Profit Scaling Podcast. I am here with my guest, James, today. Super excited to have him on. He went from selling cars, automotive, to actually becoming the best salesperson at his company, and then journeying into online business and creating everything from courses to ebooks to actually teaching top performers how to sell like he did. So welcome to the podcast, James. Super excited.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So I'd love to dive in just a little bit on your background in sales then. I think let's start there. How did you get so good? What did you start? What was your tricks?
Hey, I've been all over the road, man. I started out in a dementia unit, realized, hey, I was really good at talking to people who didn't understand logic into logical things. A mentor of mine who was successful doing door-to-door said, hey, kid, why are you talking to illogical people about illogical things? Go talk to logical people about logical things. Started doing door-to-door solar, door-to-door roofing, pandemic hit, and then I really learned how to sell inside of people's home while installing cable and inside their business while installing internet. At the time, I was doing telecom, and there was a sales element there, and it was sink or survive. And I realized I could sell then, and rode that out, and then ended up in the automotive wave. And from there, like you said, started getting a sales team, became a top performer where I was at, top performer with the brand, and it's just been a wild ride. And then I kind of zoom out, and I realized I've always been a salesman, didn't know I was a salesman, and a lot of people who don't think they are can be. And it's just kind of a weird thing where sales is service, and not many people realize that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I think a lot of business owners, especially when they may have this idea or they may get into it, but it's like, if you are a business owner, you are in sales, period. That's it. So that's awesome that you figured out you had this little skill. And it sounds like you even teams and being able to coach people on how to sell also. Is that accurate? Or how do you think about that of actually coaching someone or trying to get them to become someone like you who are maybe naturally gifted, but how do you actually train people to do what you do then?
It's almost the opposite. When I started, I wasn't great, and I just had good mentors. And it's one of those things where move people, and people woke me up and made me realize what's out there. And then I come a younger version of myself in other people. And it's like, hey, if you understand a couple of these little things, we tweak a couple of those things, all of a sudden you're killing it too. And then you get them thinking the same ways, and all of a sudden stuff happens, man. I've had people where years ago we just were friends, and then all of a sudden they're out here killing it. Or, hey, you just got out of college, you've never had a real job, and then you just turn around, you wake up, and then this guy's making 10 grand in a month. It's insane.
That's awesome. So talk to me a little bit about that of what did your mentors teach you? Can you remember who they were back in the day?
When I got into it, man, ironically enough, Andy Elliott's a key one back when he was really small. Brad Lee, and it's a lot of these mentality things where it's like, if you just get your approach right, people are gonna be attracted to you. It's laws of attraction and stuff like that. But if you're a human being in this weird post-pandemic world where nobody is, all of a sudden you're 6 steps ahead. And then you add in a couple of different ways to communicate with people, like negotiation and stuff like that. But that's an afterthought. If you're just a real human being, people are naturally going to be gravitated towards you if you just have good energy.
No, absolutely. I think that's definitely in business in general. Whenever you're talking to someone or even just going to networking events, it's really about do people find you do they like to talk to you? Are you
Absolutely
someone who can actually, hold a conversation and then genuinely help people out? So talk to me a little bit about that. That's awesome. It sounds like you were actually learning a lot from online mentors. I'm familiar with Andy and Brad Lee. So how did you take the information that they were giving you and then apply it in your job?
So using the automotive example, when I showed up, there's school car dogs, and they got their playbook that they locked you in a room and they taught you that. And that was enough to get you thinking right. But then I reached out to some of these YouTube and online giants that seem unreachable. And if you have a good communication approach, they'll reach back out to you. And I was having real conversations with these guys, and they were giving me real actionable tips and tactical stuff. And then all of a sudden I turn around and it works. And in my specific story, twins who are directly tied with Andy, they are from my market, my area. They're from Denver. So I got tied up with them, and they just started giving me real actionable tips about Doug, I was in Denver. This is what we did. And it worked.
Dang, that's awesome. So if you can go back then, what was it that worked for you? If you're going to go a little bit more tactical, and we can talk about automotive, because I just think that sometimes it can just apply to different industries too. What was it tactically that was working for you?
People, so there's layers to it, right? If you sell yourself and then people like you, and then they like the entity you're with, your dealership or your brand, and then they like the vehicle, that's a home run. But a lot of times, if you check one of those boxes, they're still coming back, they're still getting something from you.
Mm.
And personally, with me, the whole do it with Huett thing, that was a dead end kind of joke because I was trying to figure out a personal brand, and then it took off. And then I had people that didn't know me or knew of me, and they just came up and started saying it to me, and then that started attracting more people and stuff like that. It's those little 1% wins that just add up.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So it sounds like you branded yourself also. That was an important aspect of it.
Huge. Doing little things like giving people stickers, doing little things like social media giveaways, doing little things that are just free value back to people, because that's the thing. People just want to have a reason to be around you. And that can be your energy, that can be your attitude, it can be free stuff online. It depends. It could be humor stuff on the internet too.
No, absolutely. So I'd love to hear a little bit about, it's like you went from the automotive industry and then you like got into the online world, it sounds like. What was like the moment you were like, oh yeah, let me like turning into more of online business?
So that one's really weird. So I in the auto industry, there's an insane, in sales in general, there's an insane amount of turnover. And I was just seeing all these people coming through, and it's like nobody was waking them up, nobody was reaching out to them because they didn't want it or didn't know how, or however that ended up. And the people that you did shake and wake up, all of a sudden they turn around and they're killing it. And it's like, that's a lot of people, man. And I told a couple friends that were asleep doing a different job, doing FedEx, or they were a college kid or whatever. And we kind of took them awake, and it's like, you can do this too. And they realized how easy it was. And then I just kind of sat there and I can limit myself with people that are at my dealership, people that are at my auto group, or people that I run into on the day to day. And then I just kind of started thinking bigger. And ironically, about a year earlier, I had a stupid TikTok go viral. I never used TikTok at all. And it was just me showing people how somebody got their car broken into because of the Kia Boys thing. And that blew up. And it's like, that made me realize the power of this if it's in an educational way and you focus it in the right direction. And I just started talking to people online, where people halfway across the country at Volkswagen dealerships, they're asking me like, man, how'd you get that little gold coin? And stuff like that. And it's like, dude, if you just want it, you put your head down, you're going to get it. And I'm nobody special, dude. As a kid, I was afraid to make calls like everybody else.
So was that your, I guess it sounds like, walk me through your introduction to sales. It sounds like you cut your teeth on actually like going door to door and like doing door to door sales. And have you moved now? What's the similarities, I guess, between like in-person sales versus like online, or if you're on Zoom or even doing it like with the phones?
Weird. Zoom's the middle. So like in-person sale, you have body language, you have like real objects, and there's hopefully a like legitimate reason you're there. Door to door is tough because a lot of times it's just cold knocking. On the flip side, phones, there is no body language. You don't get to see their face. I don't get all you have is tonality. And the cool thing about Zoom is it's that halfway in the middle. It's the best way to have the best human to human interaction you can while reaching as many people as possible. Because I've been in Zoom calls that have 100 people in there or more, and they feel like we're all in the same room, versus you do that on a conference call or something. It's tough, man.
No, absolutely. So walk me through, I don't know if you can remember some of the stories of some of the biggest deals that you were a part of or that you actually closed, and like how those happened.
I was having this conversation with a friend a night or two ago, and it's most of them happen by accident. They're like, I don't want to say they're the deals that nobody else could make happen or like shouldn't have happened, but it's always these weird situations where it's just like the weirdest things lined up. I had a lady who was a flight attendant that had a really good stock win, and this was during the height of the used car market. She came in and got an electric Audi, and we happened to have a ton of profit in there. Came in, bought it, no questions asked, wrote a check for it, and that was, I think it was a 32,000 deal on. It was insane. More recent one, we had a really old G-Wagon, and it was beat up. It was in disrepair, and it was just a repeat customer that came in, liked it, and he was the guy. You know what I mean? And that's kind of like a personality thing. So a lot of times, like, best deals happen by accident, but if you aren't out there looking for them and you aren't out there making them happen, you're going to miss them. But then you look back and you're like, holy shit. And then it was a good deal.
Yeah, absolutely. So that it sounds like just the importance of just put yourself out there, whether it's on Instagram, TikTok, just branding in general, but like getting the exposure so people know about you. So when it's like, when a random thing comes in, it's like, well, they saw you somewhere. We're ready for the opportunity.
And it's one of those things where it's all a numbers game. You're going to miss most opportunities, but if you just keep on swinging and you keep on having a good attitude, it's going to be infectious. People are going to come. And whatever your industry is, like automotive, it's phone calls. The fancy tech stuff, it's extra. But if you're doing online coaching, it's Zoom calls or it's just outreach in general. You just got to find what works in your little niche and just do the work. Cliche thing, dude. The 10x, do 10 times more work.
Absolutely. So as you like, I guess let's get a little tactical of like, let's say it's like a lot of times where our audience is like B2B business owners, they have a business and like still doing sales, or they may have a sales team that they're coaching themselves. What would be like top 3 things that they need to focus on to like drive sales for their company?
For sure, tonality, because if you are just out there doing robotic calls, you're going to catch people, and yes, you will make sales. But if you listen to yourself, and if you wouldn't want to listen to yourself, man, then don't sound like that on the phone. And a lot of my coworkers, I walk by and they just sound like zombies, and it's like, dude, no, stop that. And going along with that, like, tonality is in pattern interrupts, man. Like, I want to do things that throw people off. You want to ask weird questions. You want to ask stuff that is advancing the sale, but it's not what they're expecting. And all of a sudden they're like, oh, well, that is a good question, man. And then it moves it forward, especially if you have like gatekeepers and like business to business dealership. We got calls like that all the time. And it was always the guy that said something funny that got through to the manager.
Do you have any lines like curiosity or lines like that you would use for it, or that you've heard, or like, oh, that's a one that got me or that I used to use?
Oh man, a lot of the ones are ones that just kind of snuck by. But it was usually the guy that just huddled with you. Hey, you get these calls all the time. I just want to, front with you. And then they slide in a joke. You can kind of tell who you are on the phone. I might look like a sir, but I'm way more of a dude. And if they're on the phone with me and they're like, hey, dude, I know this is annoying, and I know you get these all the time. I just got, like that. It just makes them human, and it makes you want to help them versus these people where it's like, oh, you guys called 18 times this week. Next.
And he sounds horrible. He sounds like a robot.
Or even DMs, man. Like, people just hit me up in the DMs. I'd love to teach you a good sales pitch, because like the 12th person that's hit me up about drop shipping. Please stop.
That's great. Yeah, it's fantastic. I don't think that's talked about enough is tonality of. So what are some things that someone could do to practice tonality? Some people might come from like tech background and like, we're designing this company that we believe is going to change the world. But it's like when we're talking to people, or if we're presenting to higher levels, or even like venture capitalists or investors, what are some things to practice with tonality?
Mirroring. That's the first thing that, like, door to door. And this was like in 101 for me when I was terrible at sales. I would stand too close to the door, and I would be too rigid or too casual. And especially like if we're talking like a boardroom business to business kind of situation, you want to feel your audience. I tell people you can sir a dude, but you can't do to sir. And you want to feel that out. And it's like, if they start to loosen up with you and they start to like you, they start to laugh, if you can touch them, you can move the deal forward. And what I tell people is tonality, go a level below them and see what that does. Because some people are always going to lead the conversation. That's how it is. And some people, like in a sales situation, if you're trying to lead the conversation, go a level above, go a level below. And then all of a sudden you're going to lead them where you need to go. And especially if they get mad. If they get mad, there's kind of ways to do it. You do the opposite. You don't get mad and you just kind of calm them down, or you get absurdly upset with them and then they can't be mad. So it's stuff like that. If you can handle tonality, you can get through any situation. And that's what the Dimension Unit taught me. So if you can give people that level of service, you can sell them anything.
That's fantastic. That's so good. Just matching, mirroring, but then just taking them to different places to keep it moving forward. So what about, because I know like a lot of times it's just repetitions, putting the numbers. People have heard this, but what is like when you're just in like sales slump? I don't know if you've experienced that before. Like, sure, some team has, but like you get out of that.
Really good ways are like if somebody else has like half deal or something that's almost there, it just gets you alive. Even if you aren't even getting a commission off of it, just help them with something. In automotive, for example, take the car to detail, print out paperwork for them. Just do something to get your brain engaged on the right path that can wake you up. Days off for salespeople are sketchy because too many of them can ruin your brain in a bad way. But if you're burnt out, you need some time off, man. And it's like, there's a fine line between those two things, but like, just need to do a pattern interrupt on yourself.
There it is. That's a good one of just like, if you're in that, if just, you need to snap out of it quickly, of either from what I'm gathering, just basically the meta of it is like, either do something that's going to move something forward, whether it's helping someone else, helping a previous client, or like contributing to another deal. And then that'll automatically be like, I don't know, just kind of rewire you, or just.
It's like writer's block. You need to just start writing on the page. And it's like, as a salesperson, if you can just do something to get your brain going through the right steps, that can take over. Or on the flip side, just do something that shakes yourself up. It could be working out. It could be a day off. It could not be a day off. It could just be going out there making 100 cold calls and just getting the next deal, man. It just depends on who you are.
That's great. So when it comes to transitioning, I know we talked a little bit about you creating like a course or ebook. What was that going from like sales to now you're like doing creation or like doing like education? What was that transition like for you?
To me, it's just putting down what I've been coaching people and telling people, because I have little things I say, I jokingly call them like Huettisms. And it's like, if I put them down, they can reach more people. And in that way, all the best stuff that I've read, all the best stuff that's made me who I am has been in the same format. And every couple of years, there's got to be a software update, and you got to cut in what you've learned, because post-pandemic and people now are way different, dude. Gen Z, millennials, whatever you want to call them, as we're all getting older, it's different than a lot of these older sales methods, because we don't like sales, but at the same time, we're very social and we like to flock to the right thing. So it's tough.
Absolutely. And that's what I just know. It sounds like just knowing who you're talking to, whether it's like using sir, using dude, use that to your advantage of just like know who you're talking to, know what they like. It sounds like.
Absolutely. You got to cater to your audience. And at the same time, you got to know who you are. And confidence breeds competence. And it's like, I look back when I didn't know who I was, 18, 19, I couldn't sell because I didn't know what I was talking about. On the flip side, as you figure it out, you start to kill it, man.
Well, that's fantastic. So let's talk about that. Confidence comes from competence. So let's say you're just starting out in business, or like a newer business owner, or really don't have that much, I guess, like confidence, like maybe like first business, and you may be someone younger. How do you go about building that competence, which leads to confidence when like just starting out and you really don't know what you're doing?
To me, it's kind of that brute force method. If you have a sales element, it's the cold calls. If you are in your own business, it's telling people like, I am this. It's saying, I am the flower shop owner. I am the car salesman. I am the sales coach. Whatever it is, you just have to start acting out that role, and you're going to have imposter syndrome. And eventually, you kind of realize it's all silly, because it's all your own perceptions. It's all things you made up in your own head. And as you get through that, you get the confidence, and then you become what you've been working on.
Absolutely. No, I think the brute force of just like, hey, you just got to get in the reps. If you don't have the reps, of course you're not going to be confident unless you're super, super lucky, which is super rare. And then I'd love to transition more towards like experienced business owners or ones with a team, and they may have a sales team under them, but they may be underperforming. Like they crushed it at sales, but their team just can't seem to do as good of a job. So how do you go about like transitioning from you doing it to like need your team to be performing now?
It's a culture thing. People don't quit jobs, they quit leaders. And you have to set the tone, set the example. All of my best leaders in my life, they've always had something that I wanted. They've always made something of themselves. And it's like, I want to mirror that and I want to become that. And then all of the worst leaders I've had in my life are people where they're just repelling and it's somebody you don't want to be. So culture is the biggest thing. You'll have salespeople, man. You'll have salespeople that'll go and work for less because the culture is less BS. And if you're sitting there and people are falling off, people are underperforming, it's a culture thing a lot of times. It's so weird because business is stats. Business is looking at it on paper and saying, you cut this out, versus sometimes with this aspect of it, you got to go in there and make sure that the culture is airtight, because that's the difference between having a small business and having something that's giant, that's attracting people to it.
Absolutely. So what I totally agree with you. I think culture is the biggest thing, is like this determines if a business survives or not. So what happens though, if you're going into a company, let's say you're a sales leader or like brought in like as a CEO to a company, and the culture is honestly not that great, but you're in a position now to change it. How do you go about transforming culture?
Especially if you're coming in at the top, that's a huge advantage, because you need to change the mindset of the leader to change the culture. And it's one of those things where if you're coming from the bottom up, you're in trouble, because you can be infectious and you can kind of have that social authority with people, but that's a good way for them just to cut you out of the system too. If you're the leader and you're coming from the top down, you have full control. There is no reason that you can't set the example. And it's one of those things where it's trickle down leadership. If you make it work, people are going to get with the program or they're not. Versus if you're just repelling people, you'll turn around and you'll be like, oh, dude, I just blew out my entire sales team. What happened? And you'll get a new one. And it's not meant to be like that. Especially if you guys have a good coaching, good mentoring, good teaching program, like that shouldn't happen.
I'd love to talk a little bit about that though, because I feel like that's not common in a lot of companies is the continual training or coaching aspect of it. So what talk to me a little bit about the importance of that or how to internally develop it if you're the owner, if you're the CEO and you want to provide whatever resources are necessary for the team to succeed.
You need to have like best practice meetings. You guys need to kind of sit there and take the people that are killing it and say, hey, what are you doing? What are you doing differently? And then you need to try and apply that to as many people as you can. You're never going to be a Huett. You're never going to be whatever your top salesperson is. And they're never going to be able to 100% replicate other people, but you want to figure out what works. And then you want to leverage the hell out of that, man. From there, you want to have outside mentors that have been where you want to be in your industry, ideally. But if you're small business and you're doing something weird, it could just be somebody that's ran a successful business or done something weird themselves. Those are the biggest things. And internal mentorship is so important. You want to have accountability partners in a way, but you want it to be casual. You want it to not really be a pressure kind of thing. You want to have people that push each other. In my auto career, me and a buddy, we were always pushing each other. And it's that friendly competition that doesn't stomp on each other, that just drives. It could be another business. You want to have your own peers.
That's incredible. I think that's so key. That's worth repeating again of like having that accountability person, because competition, especially I'm a pretty competitive person too. I think naturally business owners like in business, sales especially, there's that competitive aspect, but doing it in a way that like drives both people forward instead of like combative of like, there's only so much. So I guess you talked a little bit about it, but how do you make sure it stays competitive yet like, we're all working towards the same goal versus like we're competitive and like becomes just like hurting like each other basically?
It's all internal, brother. It's all inside of you. It's one of those things where I can look at the relationship I'm thinking of, and I made it that way for me because I always compete with myself. I always think they're about what I'm doing. And then there's somebody else that's in the same area. If you start competing with the other person, you're either going to make that relationship weird for the other person, or you're going to kind of burn yourself out. And it depends on how much time you got. We're all competitive, but then run that out 3, 5, 10 years, man. It's a different feeling.
Absolutely. I think that's so good. The bettering of oneself always leads to the betterment of like the business, the team, your career, everything.
For us competitive guys, man, call it what it is. You got to beat yourself up. You just got to, and you got to tear yourself down too. And then you got to build it up to the next level.
So a little bit about that. I love that because it goes into like humility of it, of just like, hey, I'm not there yet, but I know I can be and I want to be there. And I think this goes into like mentorship and like learning just in general is humbling oneself to it's like, I may not know this. I need some outside counsel. I need someone who's been there and to actually show me the way. So I know you talked a little bit about your mentors, but how do you go about like mentoring other people or like mentoring in general, even if it's not like sales, but mentoring other people on your team? And it may not be like in your same craft, but you still need them to perform. I'm speaking more in terms of like if you're a business owner and you have like a marketing person, you may not be doing marketing, but you still need to mentor them and like coach them.
It's all about signposting. And I do this a lot too. I might not be the guy, but I might be able to say, hey, you need to learn this. This is a good place to go learn that, in the same way that like, if I sat down and I realized I needed a skill, if I had to pick something up, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go and find the right mentor. And sometimes if you're leading a team and you just need your marketing guy to figure that out, if you find the right marketing guy, you're like, hey, maybe go listen to some of that. Well, a lot of the resources we have, they're so readily available. They're out there. You either have to put in the time or you have to write a check and speed it up. And sometimes when you write the check and speed it up, that's like having the guy in the corner that says, this is exactly where the best restaurant in town is, as opposed to going on Yelp and guessing and figuring it out. And there's a balance there. Like all business, man, don't write a check. Just point the guys to the right places and have them learn from the right people. And it's reverse engineering. Everything that I've done that's been great, I've looked at somebody else and I've been like, that worked on me. I'm going to use that in a different way.
That's fantastic. So one of the 3 pillars that I usually go off of is vision, velocity. And when it talk about vision, I know it's like casting vision for the team, or it's like that's talked about. But as a leader, how do you actually do that of like, hey guys, here's where we're going? Or like, how do you empower the team to be like, to take ownership of like vision that you're casting?
You need to bring the team with you. So like your business, you should be the dictator. You need to lead it and drive it. And it doesn't need to be democratic. It doesn't need to be like public vote, but you need to have everybody on board. You need to be like, hey guys, this is the plan. This is where we're going. This is why we're going that way. That way you can have the group momentum, because all you guys are pushing a rock and everybody's pushing it towards the center. Rock's not going anywhere. Versus if we're all pushing the rock in the exact same direction and it's the direction I chose, your business is going to flow. Your business is going to function. And that's going to get you the vision. That's going to get you the velocity, man. That's going to get you most of the formula there.
That's amazing. I think that's so good. And the analogy of everybody pushing in the same direction instead of chaos, because I've just seen that with a lot of companies that I come into, is like everything's in chaos. Nobody knows like what exactly they have their own thing that they're doing, but they don't know like, hey, how does this all play towards the goals of the company, the goals of the entire team? And then my last pillar is vitality, which is really like being able to do it over the long term, which I think for sales is huge because you don't want to burn out. But like, can you talk to me a little bit about that, of like how you do sales over the long term without burning out and like continuing to enjoy it or find it new or exciting in those ways?
If the person that's telling you how to do it doesn't seem long term, don't listen to them. The people that I know that are the best in sales are the healthiest people I've met. They are some of the most disciplined. They are some of the most dedicated people. And they sat down and they chose in the same way that like, I'm going to be good at sales. They chose that they're going to be good at their health, because those things go hand in hand. And burnout's real, man. I've had that at a couple of points in my career. And it's like, you can do the cheap, quick way through life, but then you're going to hit a wall and then you're going to lose that time. Your body has to recover.
Absolutely, man. So with that, I'd love to wrap it up here. Is like, where can people find you? How can they get in touch with you? And what are the people that you're looking to work with, or what types?
Right now, I'm kind of trying to help people get into sales. In general, if you need any sales tips, reach out to me. I'm on pretty much all social media. Jay Huett Official. Text my phone too, man, 970-413-2819. Right now, young sales professionals, people that mirrored me a couple of years ago, small business, if you guys need tips, business professionals, if you guys aren't on tap with the sales, reach out to me. It's tough. And right now, my direction is just helping people get through some of the humps that I got through.
Fantastic. So guys, for you that are listening up or watching this, just go. If you are in any type of capacity in sales, you are a business owner. So contact James here. And he, again, amazing guy. Like you've heard, just immense value on today's episode. And all his socials will be linked below. And super excited. It was a pleasure having you, James.